Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another webinar from the newly formed Malaysian Obstetric Medicine Society. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's timely to revisit the management of HIV in pregnancy. Now, over the last 2 years, we have been truly been immense managing the pandemic called COVID-19. But let's not forget one essential topic in obstetrics, HIV. And I think this is timely, especially in view of the recently produced management guidelines, CPG, on HIV in pregnancy by the Ministry of Health of Malaysia. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes to highlight HIV in pregnancy. What is new? I've got no conflict of interest in this presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure every one of y'all are experts with regards to COVID-19, the crown virus. But can you spot the difference? Can you spot the HIV? Not the coronavirus, but the HIV virus in this image. Well, they do have some similarities. Both of them are RNA viruses. The source both came from animals. But ladies and gentlemen, the HIV virus is the virus in red with a white background, while the coronavirus is the virus with the crown, hence the name of coronavirus. So yes, they may look similar, but the virus with the crown is known as the coronavirus. So let's move on, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to talk about 5 issues. Firstly, some common misconceptions about HIV. Secondly, what is new with regards to HIV? Third, management of women who present late, or management of women with an unsuppressed viral load in labor. Fourthly, some specific obstetric considerations, which I think is extremely important for every obstetrician to know. And finally, breastfeeding and contraceptive options. So ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at some common misconceptions. Often it is not uncommon for me to have a phone call and asking, this patient has got retroviral disease, she's on treatment, shall I refer her for a detailed scan? Well, ladies and gentlemen, patients on heart do not warrant a detailed scan because it does not cause fetal anomalies. Question number 2, can you actually do a prenatal diagnosis for patients on HIV? Can you do an amniocentesis? Can you do a CVS? The answer is yes, especially if their viral loads are suppressed. The answer is yes, after suppressing viral loads in patients with a high viral load. For example, if your viral load is below 50, you can safely do a prenatal diagnosis. If the viral loads are high, you can start them on a rapidly acting antiretroviral treatment, namely nevirapine, suppress the viral loads and do a prenatal diagnosis. Let's talk about the third misconception. A cesarean section is not the only mode of delivery for patients with HIV. Those with a suppressed viral load, those with an undetectable viral load, or a viral load below 50 copies can actually have a normal vaginal delivery. The fourth common medication is Zidovudin. It used to be everyone's favorite. And it has been routine for many decades to start intrapartum Zidovudin. However, ladies and gentlemen, it is no longer indicated as per routine. There are only 3 indications to start Zidovudin. But if the patient has got a suppressed viral load presenting in labor, there's actually no benefits of starting Zidovudin. Now, how do you manage a woman who presents with PPROM before 34 weeks? I will highlight this. How do you manage a woman who presents with pre-labor rupture of membranes or spontaneous rupture of membranes? Can they still deliver vaginally? Or is there a specific timing that you should intervene? The answer is yes, you should manage them actively as you need to reduce the time from ruptured membranes to delivery. Now, can a woman with HIV breastfeed? It used to be a big no in the past, but now you can, provided you have counseled the woman is keen to breastfeed, you can continue her antiretroviral therapy for the mother and for the baby, she can breastfeed. Now, it's a common misconception that HIV means STD or pelvic inflammatory disease. Hence, most people are concerned, especially with regards to counseling on contraception. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us understand one fact. The fact that a mother has got HIV does not mean she's got an STD. You should look for an STD, but it does not mean she's got an STD. Hence, intrauterine contraceptive devices such as IUCD is not contraindicated. I'd like to say one thing, ladies and gentlemen. There's not a single contraceptive agent which is contraindicated in any woman, especially mothers with HIV. I also think there's been a huge stigmatization about HIV. Should we actually treat them differently? Should they always be the last patient in the list? Should we always counsel them for cesarean section? Should we always offer them a BTL? I believe we should move away from this stigmatization. We should be talking about normalizing care, about basic human rights, about reproductive rights. So ladies and gentlemen, HIV does not mean that they should be last in the list. HIV does not mean you should offer BTL. You should treat them as near normal as possible, especially if their viral loads are low. Can you offer IVF? Can you offer IUI for mothers with HIV? The answer is yes. Once again, you should not deny their reproductive rights. Like HIV and COVID-19, you should offer them the vaccine. You should vaccinate them for other potential infectious diseases like influenza and hepatitis B. You should also offer them the booster dose. I think you should not stigmatize them. So these are, ladies and gentlemen, some common misconceptions which I shall highlight once again in the next few slides. So before we move on to greater parts of my talk about what is new, ladies and gentlemen, let us reflect back on the management of HIV that we have all been well versed in the last few decades. I believe the concept now is U equals U. Now, this is not something new, but I hope every one of you all are aware about this concept about U equals U. So ladies and gentlemen, the concept of U equals U means undetectable, means untransmittable. And this is now our current policy to suppress every potential mother's viral load, not to 50, not to 20, but to an undetectable viral load, hoping that she's untransmittable. And that is the current concept about HIV. And similarly, a new guideline is the British guidelines known as the BIVA guidelines. It was published in 2018, just updated in 2019. I also like to bring your attention that MOH has recently published a CPG in June 2021, which is also talks about management of HIV in pregnancy. I'm sure everyone is well aware that Malaysia, among the many other countries, have eliminated 3 diseases: HIV, hepatitis B, and syphilis. Now, what does elimination mean? It means we have significantly reduced our transmission rate to a very low level. And that is the level of below 2% of mother-to-child transmission of HIV, below 0.1% of mother-to-child transmission of hepatitis B, and less than 50 cases of congenital syphilis. But ladies and gentlemen, there are still a significant amount of people who present in labor being unbooked, significant number of people who do not have antenatal care, significant number of people who are foreigners who are unbooked. So for us to achieve this status, in order for us to eliminate HIV, we should be well aware of the management of HIV in pregnancy. So what is new, ladies and gentlemen? I believe fact number 1, pre-pregnancy care is essential for every single mother, especially if the mother's got retroviral positive. The concept about U equals U, even for elite controllers. So ladies and gentlemen, elite controllers are patients with HIV who have got a very, very low viral load, who are asymptomatic, who do not actually need heart. But even for these patients, the recommendation is to start them on treatment in the 2nd trimester, especially when they are pregnant. The safety of medications, ladies and gentlemen, not all mothers need a detailed scan. And now we also know that the new agent, dolutegravir, it's safe even in the 1st trimester. It is not contraindicated. there is an association with neural tube defects, and such patients you should start on 5 milligrams of folic acid. A newer concept which has been around for the last 5 years is known as PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis. So ladies and gentlemen, although the aim is to suppress the viral load in the mother, to suppress the viral load in the partner, but in instances where the partner is positive, the mother is negative, the partner has got an unsuppressed viral load. Now, you can't tell them not to have sexual intercourse, although you should advise them on barrier methods. Now, apart from barrier methods, what other contraceptive agents can you give? You can administer PrEP. It means you give the mother who is well, who does not have the disease, a combination of tenofovir and emcitabine with the hope that she does not actually contract the disease. And that is one which has been highlighted in the last 5 years. What else is new? Ladies and gentlemen, because of the stigmatization, apart from maintaining physical health, we now know that mothers with HIV have got significant psychological implications and mental health concerns. Hence, when you see these mothers in the reproductive age, in the pre-pregnancy, in the antenatal period, or in the postnatal period, please look and screen for mental health. And once again, as I mentioned, breastfeeding is no longer a contraindication. You can, provided they fulfill certain criteria. So let's talk about the risk of vertical transmission. I believe this is important before we can manage such patients. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if a mother presents in labor, the mother has got a high viral load or an unknown viral load, the risk of vertical transmission without medications can be as high as 15 to 45%. Without treatment, obviously as high as 5%. But the current aim, ladies and gentlemen, is to eliminate HIV. Elimination means to reduce this from a potentially 45%, from a potentially 5% to the risk of 0.5%. So how do we eliminate, ladies and gentlemen? There are few management options that I'm sure everyone is well aware. A combination of antiretroviral therapy, not a retroviral therapy, but a combination. We've moved away from intrapartum zidovudine, but there are 3 groups of patients who will benefit it. We talk about pre-labor, pre-rupture cesarean sections for patients with a viral load of above 50. We talk about infant antiretroviral therapy prophylaxis. We talk about formula feeding and not breastfeeding. We talk about continuing maternal antiretroviral therapy during breastfeeding, and also infant nevirapine for mothers who breastfeed in the postnatal period. And these are some options of how you can reduce vertical transmissions. But ladies and gentlemen, let's reflect on some landmark trials that have changed the way we manage HIV patients in pregnancy. I think the first trial dates back to 1994 and is known as the ACTG 076 trial. Now, this trial showed that if you give mothers zidovudine monotherapy alone, there's a 68% risk of reduction from the mother to the baby. And hence, there used to be a time where every mother was on zidovudine monotherapy and on intrapartum zidovudine as well. However, fast forward 22 years later came the PROMISE trial. And the PROMISE trial was published in 2016 and showed that a combination of antiretroviral therapy was far more superior than monotherapy. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, ever since 2016, in the last 5 years, we have evolved towards a combination therapy because it is more superior. Then came the LATE-2 trial in 2017, which showed that injectable ARTs are as effective as triple oral ARTs. Then came a newer trial called the IMPACT 2010 VESTED trial, which was published in 2018, showed that a third agent, dolutegravir containing regimes, had a far superior efficacy and a lower pregnancy outcomes. And hence we started adding a third agent. We started using dolutegravir, and now we know it is not even contraindicated in the first trimester. So ladies and gentlemen, knowing drug regimes can be a bit complicated, but I believe every obstetrician, you should know that there are 4 groups of drugs. The first one is known as nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors, known as NRTI. Now, the popular drugs are the popular ones in this group, known as tenofovir, emcitabine, zidovudine, and lamivudine. So these are known as NRTIs, commonly used for all patients. The second group of drugs is known as non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. The popular one in this group is efavirenz. So for many, many years, before the PROMISE trial, we used to use one drug, zidovudine alone, but now the recommendation is to use a combination of therapy. So the common combination, ladies and gentlemen, is one nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors, combine them with a one non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. Hence, it's either a tenofovir with a efavirenz, it's either a emcitabine with an efavirenz, or a zidovudine and a lamivudine. Or the third group, which has been along for many, many years, is known as protease inhibitors. The commonly used drug is lopinavir. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a new group known as integrase inhibitors. It's good to know integrase inhibitors because this new kid in the block is rapidly acting. It has been proven to have less side effects and is now more commonly used, especially among HIV patients. So there are 2 groups, raltegravir and dolutegravir. So it's important to know these new groups because you will be using them more commonly in pregnancy. So the benefit of this new group, ladies and gentlemen, number 1, they are superior. Number 2, less side effects. Number 3, they're fast acting. There's only one thing you need to know. Dolutegravir is not contraindicated in the first pregnancy. Raltegravir, if you were to use in pregnancy, you should use a BD dosing as compared to a non-pregnant mother where OD dosing is recommended. So the only medication that needs a dose change is raltegravir. So ladies and gentlemen, what are the commonly used combinations? Well, if you look at various guidelines, the Europeans, the US, the WHO, the BIVA, the Ireland, the Thailand, and the Malaysian guidelines all recommend various different combinations. I believe you do not have to really know the nitty-gritty of these combinations. You can leave them to your ID experts. But it's good to know that a combination is far more superior than a single agent. But for obstetricians, ladies and gentlemen, the commonly used combination as per BIVA guidelines are 2. So what is recommended? The recommendation is a tenofovir with an emcitabine or an emcitabine with then efavirenz. So it's a nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors combined with a non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors. That seems to be the favorite combination. Or alternatively, you can use a combination of zidovudine plus lamivudine. Both are nucleoside transcriptase inhibitors. Add in the newer drug, either a raltegravir, which is BD, or a dolutegravir. Although the initial years we say start after 8 weeks, now we know, ladies and gentlemen, it is not contraindicated. You can continue them throughout the pregnancy. If you're unsure, you can always call and consult your ID colleague. But please remember, a combination is far more superior than a monotherapy. So ladies and gentlemen, what is essential for obstetricians? Point number 1. This is the 3rd time I'm highlighting the same fact. Dolutegravir is no longer contraindicated in the first trimester. There's no need to withhold. There's no need to delay. There's no need to start them after 8 weeks. If the patient is on raltegravir, she's not pregnant, she will be on OD dosing. But because of the pharmacokinetics and change in physiological changes in pregnancy, the dose for raltegravir should be BD during pregnancy. Zidovudine and protease inhibitors monotherapy are no longer recommended. They're far evolved from 1994 trial. Prenatal diagnosis is not contraindicated. You can do an amniocentesis Although we normally do a non-invasive prenatal diagnosis, but if it's needed, it is not contraindicated, especially if you can suppress the viral loads. Now, what is important for obstetricians, please remember your new group of drugs, integrase inhibitors. They have got rapid placental transfer. Remember 3 drugs, nevirapine, raltegravir, and dolutegravir. If a woman presents in labor, if you need to suppress their viral loads as soon as possible, if you have to do a procedure, these 3 drugs are recommended. And the 4th agent, ladies and gentlemen, all women will need a combination. Some of them will need 3, but if a woman presents late, then you need to add a 4th agent. And the 4th agent is always from the newer group, raltegravir and dolutegravir, especially if their viral loads are above 100,000. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to highlight some pre-pregnancy care. So what do you do in the pre-pregnancy care when you see a serodiscordant couple or both couples are confirmed to be positive? First, do not assume she's got STD. Do not assume she's got PID. It does not cause subfertility. Screen and manage genital tract infections. This includes chlamydia. This includes gonorrhea. This includes hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and syphilis. If the partner is serodiscordant, a barrier contraception is advocated, but you can use a double barrier technique. However, in the last few years, you can counsel them for PrEP, where you give the mother a combination of therapy to ensure that she is not infected. The aim is to suppress the viral loads, not just for the mother, but also for the partner. And for some unknown reasons, if the mother is on dolutegravir, please do not ask her to stop. Please ask her to take 5 milligrams of folic acid. It is not contraindicated in the first trimester. How about antenatal management? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can divide this group of women into 2 groups. Women who conceive and are on combination of antiretroviral therapy. I've used the synonym CART, which means combination of antiretroviral therapy. In this woman, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at the medications. There are very, very, very few medications which are contraindicated in pregnancy. So if they are on a standard regime, continue the medication throughout the pregnancy. There's no need to stop, modify, unless you think they're unsafe. If they're on single agent, you need to add another agent known as a combination of antiretroviral therapy. If you're on dolutegravir, please do not stop. Please do not change medications. It is okay. On the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, if the woman is not on a combination of antiretroviral therapy, then she gets pregnant, then it gets slightly more complicated. You should look for elite controllers. Now, elite controllers, as mentioned earlier, are mothers who have the disease, who are not on treatment, but who have got a very suppressed viral load. So even they, if they don't need treatment outside pregnancy, they do need treatment during pregnancy as to reduce the risk of vertical transmissions. So for elite controllers, ladies and gentlemen, start treatment. You can start them latest by 24 weeks. Why 24 weeks? Initially, there were concerns about fetal anomalies. We are very sure now it does not cause fetal anomalies, but 24 weeks gives you appropriate time to suppress the viral load, keep it suppressed, as she's likely going to be delivered at 30. For other groups of mothers who are not on treatment, especially if she's got high viral loads, especially if she's got a low CD4 count, or especially if she still has got an unsuppressed viral load in the second trimester, please start her on a combination of antiretroviral therapy. So the aim, ladies and gentlemen, start treatment, suppress the viral load, even if you have a suppressed viral load. Now let's move on to a few other details about antenatal management. Do you have to routinely perform resistant testing before initiation? The answer is no. Should you have a baseline CD4 count? Yes. A CD4 count should be done at least at 3 times at booking to look for response, and at 34 to 36 weeks near delivery to plan the mode of delivery. Now, it's important to check the viral load once again at booking 2 to 4 weeks after initiation to ensure she's compliant, she is not resistant. Each trimester, ladies and gentlemen, first, second, and third, and finally at 36 weeks. Now, for all patients on combination of antiretroviral therapy, please monitor the liver function tests. An invasive testing is not contraindicated, as mentioned earlier. Please screen for sexual infections. I would like to add a BV as well, bacterial vaginosis, apart from gonorrhea, apart from chlamydia. Now, some of these medications may predispose the mother to have hyperglycemia. Hence, you should screen them for GDM. But ladies and gentlemen, the current recommendations for GDM does say universal screening of GDM for everyone. Hence, you don't have to specifically screen, but you should screen a mother for GDM. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the incidence of mental health for mothers with HIV disease can be as 30%. So please ask directed questions. Please screen them pre-pregnancy, antenatally, and postpartum. Offer support. If there's no response, please don't blame the mother. Sometimes you need to check for resistance. Sometimes you need to check for TDM levels. Because ladies and gentlemen, in pregnancy, your plasma volume increases, eGFR increases, the efficacy of the medication goes down, especially rolutegravir. So what is the level of care for these patients, ladies and gentlemen? Well, do they really need to see an obstetric medicine clinic? The answer is no, but I believe they can be seen in the primary care level, but it should ideally be a specialist, a family medicine specialist, especially in the pre-pregnancy, especially early in the pregnancy, especially in the late second trimester and near towards labor. For mothers who have got an unsuppressed viral load, for mothers who have got resistance, for mothers who have got a combination of co-infections, I believe you need a multidisciplinary team, especially if you think the mother's got comorbids. So a multidisciplinary team should consist of an ID specialist, a maternal fetal medicine specialist, ideally an obstetric medicine specialist, and please do not forget to involve a neonatologist. Ideally, such mothers should be delivered in a tertiary care with neonatal facilities because the baby needs counseling, the baby needs treatment, the baby needs follow-up. Please do not often forget about mental health. You need to care holistically. You need to care for the HIV. You need to care for mental health. You also need to care for obstetric and medical risk factors. Be non-judgmental. Do not stigmatize. The first thing that a woman comes and books, do not ask for a marriage certificate. Let us remove barriers. Let us allow them to come forward, and they'll be far more better and superior for this woman. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, have a documented care plan. When to check liver function tests? What have you screened? What are the results? Where should she deliver? How should she deliver? She presents with leaking, she presents with SROM. What is the plan? What is the contraceptive plan? It is not always BTL, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to specifically now move on into 3 specific groups. What if the woman is on a combination therapy, but in the antenatal period, you realize that she has got an unsuppressed viral load? So ladies and gentlemen, it's not just a viral load which is important, but as obstetricians, as physicians, you should always know the trend of the viral load. We started the pregnancy with 100,000 viral load. After 4 weeks, it remains 100,000. You should revisit and look at 5 things. Number 1, compliance. Is she really compliant to the medication? Number 2, you should perhaps now consider doing resistant testing. Is that medication working? Number 3, especially in pregnancy, especially in women with an increased BMI, perform or consider therapeutic drug monitoring as to ensure that the treatment for the woman is optimal. Then you can optimize the regime, and finally consider an intensification regime where you can add a 3rd agent or you can add a 4th agent. And these are some of the 5 principles on how you can manage a patient where you are unable to suppress a viral load in the antenatal period. So what is the principles of antenatal care, ladies and gentlemen? Number 1, you should look and see whether she's got a suppressed or unsuppressed viral load. If it's suppressed, good, worry less. If it's unsuppressed, you need to elevate and escalate her care. Now, it's not just a viral load that you should be concerned of at 34 weeks or 36 weeks. It is not just the number of 50, but you should know the duration of treatment. If she's been on treatment for 2 years, 3 years, for an entire life, throughout the antenatal period, worry less. But if she's just been on treatment for the last 2 weeks, worry more, because you may not be able to suppress the viral load in a short period of time. Hence, ladies and gentlemen, it is not just the viral load, but the trajectory of viral load is important, and this has to be documented in an antenatal card. Now, always look at concomitant infections. Although one may say, even if she's got hepatitis B, hepatitis C, the treatment is the same. The answer is no. Patients with one infection behave differently. Patients with other infections behave differently. You should also, apart from BV, apart from gonorrhea, apart from chlamydia, also screen for GBS, because the risk of infection may increase her obstetric risk. Please do not just be engrossed with HIV. Look at other obstetric comorbidities, the BMI, the anemia, the diabetes, the preterm labor, the PIH, the preeclampsia, because all of these may have compounding risk to the mother. And finally, ensure compliance and also offer support and look into social circumstances. Now, most of them, it is good to be non-judgmental, do not stigmatize, but they do have some social issues which can be solved, can be educated, can be prevented, and can be offered support. So, ladies and gentlemen, now, having taken through the mother through the pre-pregnancy, through the antenatal period, we have reached an important landmark called 34 to 36 weeks. At 34 to 36 weeks, what should you do? Be concerned of certain issues. Number one, you should universally screen every unbooked mother who presents in labor. Just like doing a COVID RTK, you should also do a HIV, because we are serious about eliminating HIV. Number two, please take a look not just at her viral load now. What is the trajectory? Has it been on a downward trend? Has it been static? Has it been resistance? What is her compliance? How long has she been on treatment? And what is the perception about mode of delivery? Some people are motivated to deliver naturally. Some people think, even her caregivers, that cesarean section is the best. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no one medical condition where cesarean section is recommended and a vaginal delivery is contraindicated. She can deliver naturally in most circumstances. Please assess the obstetric risk. Please screen her mental health. Finally, document a planned delivery, either a planned vaginal delivery, a planned cesarean section, and this should ideally be in a center where there's sufficient neonatal services. If she's got a suppressed viral load, continue the same. If she's got an unsuppressed viral load, you may have to add a fourth agent. This is when now you need intrapartum zidovudine. For patients who present late, I'm going to highlight their management in the next few slides. Patients who have got pre-labor rupture of membranes or spontaneous rupture of membranes, you have to actively manage them. Patients with concomitant infections, the risk of preterm delivery is high. The fetus needs additional interventions. So, I talked about planned vaginal delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, although you may plan with the patient, most of the time it is unplanned and unpredictable, but it's good to achieve and try to plan. So I'd like to highlight one paper, ladies and gentlemen. It's called the ARRIVE trial, which was published almost 3 years ago. Now, this looked into an electively planned delivery, where you induce every single low-risk mother at 39 weeks, and they looked at outcome. And they realized, ladies and gentlemen, if you induce a mother at 39 weeks, there's no increased incidence of cesarean section. Now, after this, there are various other studies that looked into the magic number of 39 weeks. And they realized that 39 weeks seems to be a time where delivery seems to be the safest. At 39 weeks, an induction does not increase the cesarean section. It reduces the incidence of meconium, reduces the incidence of fetal distresses, reduces the incidence of stillbirths, and even the IQ for babies born at 39 weeks seems to be better. So, ladies and gentlemen, even for low-risk mothers, the current recommendations is to deliver them at 39 weeks, not at 40 weeks. And hence, if you're planning a vaginal delivery, even for retroviral positive mothers, I believe 39 weeks should be a good, appropriate gestation, because number one, you can plan it. Number two, you can admit her to the ward. Number three, you can prevent her from coming to the hospital with a prolonged leaking, and hence an induction at 39 weeks seems to be reasonable. Now, mode of delivery, look into three circumstances. If she's got a viral load of below 50 copies, she can have a planned vaginal delivery, which is induction of labor at 39 weeks. It does not increase the risk of cesarean sections. If a viral load is above 400, she should have a planned cesarean section at 38 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. However, if a viral load is hovering between 50 to 399, also she should have a planned cesarean section. Please consider the trajectory. Please consider her adherence. Please consider the duration of time she's been on treatment. So what is the best time and what is the difference between 38 to 39 weeks cesarean section, ladies and gentlemen? It is purely due to transient tachypnea of newborn on the baby. If you deliver someone at 38 weeks, the risk of TTN to the fetus is 5%. But if you deliver someone at 39 weeks, the risk of TTN is 1%. And hence, time matters if you deliver at 38 or 39. So, ladies and gentlemen, for mothers who have got a suppressed viral load, plan vaginal delivery, offer induction at 39 weeks, continue a combination of antiretroviral therapy, no role for intrapartum zidovudine. It is a practice of the past. A VBAC is not contraindicated, but of course, even a water birth, ladies and gentlemen, is not contraindicated, especially if she's got a suppressed viral load. However, there are three circumstances where you need intrapartum zidovudine. One, a mother who is untreated, who's unbooked, who presents in labor, she needs intrapartum zidovudine, should be given ideally 4 hours before delivery. It should be 2 milligrams per kg in the first hour, followed by 1 milligram per kg until delivery, minimum 4 hours. The second indication for zidovudine is mothers with a high unsuppressed viral load, especially if it's above 100,000 copies per mil. And the third event, ladies and gentlemen, consider, not a must, for mothers with a viral load of above 50. Now, why do the word consider? It depends whether she's got concomitant risk. It depends on the trajectory of a viral load. It depends on the duration of a viral load. It depends whether she's got ruptured membranes. But generally, most people would give intrapartum if she's got an unsuppressed viral load in labor. Now, how about mothers with PROM? And how about mothers with pre-labor rupture of membranes with a suppressed viral load? So, ladies and gentlemen, mothers who presents with a suppressed viral load, who have got a preterm pre-labor rupture of membranes, please screen for GBS. The recommendations, if it's below 34 weeks, expectant, give them antenatal corticosteroids, deliver them at 34 weeks, but manage them inpatient with a CRP, with a FBC, and look for signs of infection and chorioamnionitis. However, if they present with preterm pre-labor rupture of membranes beyond 34 weeks, the recommendation is to deliver them with an active intervention, but cover them for GBS. You need to provide them with intrapartum CPEN as GBS prophylaxis. On the other hand, they've got a suppressed viral load. They are term, but they present with pre-labor rupture of membranes or spontaneous rupture of membranes. Also cover them for GBS, and the recommendation is for active management, ladies and gentlemen. Active management wins. Send them to the labor ward, start them on oxytocin, and please do not wait for 24 hours. you should always try to reduce the latency from ruptured membranes till delivery. How about mothers who have got an unsuppressed viral load, a viral load beyond 50 copies? Then you should have a planned cesarean section. This should ideally be done at 38 weeks because you do not want these patients to come in labor. The principle is to do a pre-labor cesarean section, a pre-labor, pre-rupture cesarean section. Continue a combination of antiretroviral therapy and consider intrapartum zidovudine for 4 hours before delivery. Now, how about an untreated woman presenting in labor? She's not on a combination of antiretroviral therapy. Be concerned of this woman. Now you need to add nevirapine status. Now you need to give her oral zidovudine and lamivudine. These 3 agents alone are not enough. You need to add a 4th agent, valtergravil, and then you need to give her intrapartum IV zidovudine. And mothers will present with preterm labor with an untreated retroviral disease. The gastric emptying and absorption is less for such infants. Hence, you may have to give them a double dose of tenofovir. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, for women who present late presentation means women who present beyond 28 weeks. The recommendation is to use a 4-drug regime. The recommendation is to use a raltegravir or a dolutegravir. Now, how about if they've got co-infections? So the management is the same. The recommendations for hepatitis B mothers is to use tenofovir. So please ensure tenofovir is part of the regime. Apart from checking HIV viral loads, the recommendation is also to check hepatitis B viral loads. Although U equals U is correct, it's true for HIV. The recommendations for hepatitis B is to reduce them to a level of 200,000 copies. And that is the recommendation for hepatitis B. And please screen for liver cirrhosis they need and ultrasound. If the mother has got a co-infection with hepatitis C, then she needs a directly acting antiviral therapy, ideally a ribavirin. HIV-2, ladies and gentlemen, it is rare, it is good to think, it's good to discuss with your IED, and you often need to add a boosted protease inhibitor-based regime, such as darunavir. So ladies and gentlemen, what are some specific obstetric considerations that I think I'm going to summarize based on what I spoke about in the last 30 minutes? Prenatal diagnosis is not contraindicated, especially if the copies are below 50 copies, especially if she's got suppressed. However, if there's a need to do an urgent prenatal diagnosis, this is not routine, ladies and gentlemen. You can screen by using a non-invasive method, but if you were to use an urgent prenatal diagnosis, you can always add raltegravir, you can add nevirapine, and do the procedure 2 to 4 hours later. Now, can you perform an external Catholic version? Yes, it is not contraindicated, especially if the mother has got a suppressed viral load. The mother presents with pre-labor rupture of membranes before 34 weeks, screen for GBS, treat her expectantly. The mother presents with pre-labor rupture of membranes with SROM, expedite the delivery. If the viral load is below 50 copies per mil, offer GBS prophylaxis. You need to cover them with intrapartum IV Cpan, especially if she presents with leaking. If the mother has got a viral load of above 50 copies per mil, the recommendation is for cesarean section at 38 weeks. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to roughly talk about postpartum. In the postpartum period, you need to continue a combination of antiretroviral therapy. Now, for many years, formula feeding is recommended, has been the preference. However, now, if the woman is keen, if the woman wants to breastfeed, being retroviral disease itself is not a contraindication. The mother can breastfeed, provided she's got 3 things. She has been adequately counseled about the risk. She has got a suppressed viral load. She and the mother needs to be on treatment. Then she can breastfeed, but you need to continue to monitor the viral load for the mother and for the baby. In the postnatal period, please do not forget mental health. The incidence can be as high as 1 in 3 for every mother with retroviral disease. Screen them 3 to 4 weeks post-delivery, screen them again 3 to 4 months. They often suffer in silence. And in the 3 months review, apart from mental health, please do not forget an opportunistic routine pap smear. Now, here's a UK MAC summarized guidelines, ladies and gentlemen. As I highlighted earlier on in the day, there's no contraception which is contraindicated. You can use an intrauterine contraceptive device. It is UK MAC not 3, it is UK MAC 2, especially if you've got screen her for infections, and especially if a CD4 counts are above 200. So, ladies and gentlemen, HIV, once again, does not equate to tubal ligation. If she's got a past PID, an IUCD is not contraindicated. It is only contraindicated if she's got an active PID or she's got an active vaginal infection or a chlamydia infection. So, IUCD is not absolutely contraindicated in such patients. So, take home message, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember 3 drugs with rapid placental transfer: nevirapine, raltegravir, dolutegravir. If the woman presents in labor, unbooked, unsuppressed, late bookers, you need to do a prenatal diagnosis. These 3 medications are important. If she's got a suppressed viral load, plan the vaginal delivery, ideally at 39 weeks. If she presents with PROM, SROM, offer active management, cover for GBS. She presents with PPROM, active management as well, cover her for GBS. If her viral loads are above 50 copies, cesarean section is recommended at 38 weeks. For women who present late or women who present untreated, you need not a 3-drug regime, but a 4-drug regime, and only 2 group of women need intrapartum zidovudine: women who are untreated who presents in labor, or women with a viral load of above 1,000 copies per ml. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would recommend you to read the ACOG guidelines of HIV, the BIVA guidelines, the Lancet paper on HIV, the FSRH guidelines, and in June 2021, as the newly published and updated Malaysian guidelines of HIV, I would strongly recommend you to review these guidelines. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your attention. If you do have any questions, please reach us out to www.obstetricmedicine.my. And thank you so much for your attention.